So this is lesson 24 entitled Quality Audits. The objectives of this lesson is to cover the meaning of quality audits, the definition of quality audits. We will talk about the different types of quality audits, including self-inspection, the audit role of the role of auditing within the GMP and the QA programs. Elements of a systematic audit program will be discussed, and a summary at the end. So quality audit is defined as a systematic and independent examination to determine whether activities and related results comply with planned arrangements and whether these arrangements are implemented effectively and are suitable to achieve objectives. So in essence, this means really a quality audit is a means of systematically examining the company's QA system or quality system. And audits are typically performed at defined intervals, and any failure in their proper implementation may be published publicly if it's an external audit and may lead to a quality certification being revoked. The objectives of a quality audit are as follows. Pharmaceutical manufacturers commonly use audits as an effective mechanism to verify compliance with good manufacturing regulations. GMP audits have two important goals. Audits are intended to verify that manufacturing and control systems are operating under a state of control, and an audit permits timely correction of potential problems or problems that may happen. Audits can be used to establish a high degree of confidence to remain under an adequate level of control by the management within the company. So just to explain what self-inspection is. So to evaluate the manufacturer's compliance with GMP in all aspects of production and quality control, self-inspections are used, or internal inspections. They're designed to detect any shortcomings in the implementation of CGMP and to recommend the necessary corrective actions. The self-inspections are performed routinely as well as on special occasions. For example, in the case of a product recall or a deviation or a repeated rejection of product, a self-inspection is then warranted. So some items that are covered during self-inspections would be things like personnel premises, including facilities, maintenance of buildings and equipment, storage of starting materials and finished products. Self-inspections would look at equipment, production and in-process controls, quality control. They go into the quality control area. Documentation will be looked at, as well as sanitation and hygiene. The validation or the revalidation programs are looked at. Calibration of instruments or measuring systems. Recall procedures, complaints procedures, label controls, results of previous self-inspections, and any corrective steps taken will be looked at during self-inspections. So there are three different types of quality control audits, namely internal audits, which are carried out by staff of a section or a department or a local QA group within the company. External audits are normally carried out by a company on its vendors or its subcontractors, for example, an audit of a supplier of a raw material. And then regulatory audits are normally carried out by an external regulatory body like the FDA, the United States FDA, or the HPRA, or the Irish Medicines Board, as it was formerly known. So to dig a bit deeper then into each type of audit, we'll go through what an internal audit is. So an internal audit is to ensure that adequate quality systems are maintained, to assess compliance with the CGMPs and the firm's standard operating procedures, to achieve consistency between manufacturing and testing facilities, to identify problems internally and correct problems prior to an FDA inspection. In a pharmaceutical facility, for internal auditing, you're required to check mainly two things, namely activities carried out by different departments and documents maintained by those departments. External audits, the purpose is confidence in the partnership arrangements, ensuring that requirements are understood, enabling reduction of in-house QC testing of starting materials, reducing the risk of failure. So normally a company would audit their supplier of a key starting material or raw material, which eventually reduces the need to retest those products when they come on site. So it's a cost saving and a time saving value adding activity by doing an external audit. Normally carried out by a company on its vendors or its some subcontractors, and there's no legal requirement to carry out these audits. Regular audits would be carried out to assess compliance with the agreed standards between the vendor and the company. So regulatory audits then, the purpose of regulatory audits, it's a networking and confidence building between national inspection authorities, development of quality systems within the industry. Regulatory inspections work towards global harmonization of CGMPs. Normally carried out by regulatory bodies like the USA, FDA, or the HPRA. For manufacturing and supply of pharmaceutical products, audits may be unannounced. Failure of regulatory audits may result in a withdrawal of the manufacturing or the import-export license. After regulatory audits, a formal report will be delivered. Normally for HPRA, it's a verbal feedback report is given at the exit meeting, and the FDA will normally provide a 483 letter at the exit meeting also. So what is audited? So the type of things that auditors will review are standard operating procedures, looking at the employee practices and behaviours, and that includes things like gowning procedures in sterile areas, and making sure those procedures are followed carefully. They would compare master specifications against compendia and regulatory specifications, verify that the test data and validation testing compared to the validation reports, verify corrective actions are taken in reaction to audit findings. Benefits which are derived from audits include things like assuring GMP compliance, detecting potential problems that may occur, so you're preventing future issues, affecting programmed improvements, and increasing management awareness of issues. FDA conduct routine inspections of all pharmaceutical manufacturers to determine if manufacturing and control procedures conform to GMP. FDA inspectors make unannounced visits to certain manufacturing facilities to examine their equipment, their personnel, their records, and their facilities. They use systematic analysis approaches during auditing. GMP audits can find objectionable conditions that may be due to either production issues, QA or QC, or even due to management personnel. The auditor will see whether these actions are frequent or not, and from this this could signal other GMP problems. If you find one issue in one area, it may lead to others, so it can expand into other areas. Audits will instigate the following changes and improvements within a company. So it may warrant, after an audit is complete, the company may look at improving or clarifying their standard operating procedures. They can look at modifying manufacturing equipment or procedures for processing, upgrading equipment itself, improving employee training programs, developing new or revised documentation systems. For any given audits, there are normally two outcomes: either problems are found or they're not. And if the problems are found, management takes an appropriate step to eliminate the problems. An audit isn't about finding objectionable conditions. Either there was no problems to be found, or the auditor failed to detect any conditions that were actually present, or there were underlying conditions that were present at the time. So some of the regulatory requirements of the ISO are things like an audit procedure must be in place within the company. An audit schedule must be in place that takes into consideration the the auditing areas and the results of previous audits. Trained and impartial auditors must be in place. An audit report has to be completed, including the audit criteria, the scope and the methods used, timely corrective action of deficiencies if found, records that provide evidence that corrective actions was implemented and its effectiveness was verified, and results need to be reviewed by top management of your audit findings. Quality system audit can be broken down into four basic phases. So the first one is the planning of the audit. The second one is conducting the audit, analysing the results of the audit, and then generating the report and following up on the corrective actions, including follow-up audits if necessary. Some of the benefits derived from audits include things like assuring current good manufacturing compliance at all time, as well as compliance to regulatory standards, detecting potential problems or problems that may arise, affecting programmed improvement changes, and ensuring that management are aware of issues at all times and that they're on board with improvements and carrying out the corrective actions in a timely manner. Thanks for listening. That was the last slide.